The following podcast is going to contain spoilers along with big fat bags of cheese. Proceed at your own risk. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Steeven Orr podcast. I'm your host, Steeven, and this week I am recording in the new studio. And by new studio, it's actually an old studio, but it's new for me. It's the studio that is at our local library, and I am able to come in here for 3 hours at a time, twice a month, and this is what I'm going to be using to continue to bring you podcasting goodness. That is, once I am away from my hiatus. Yes, I mentioned the hiatus. I talked about it last week. I'm going to be going away for a month, maybe a month and a half, possibly 2 months. We'll see how much I can actually get done here in this studio. Because if I can only get in here twice a month, if I want to continue podcasting weekly, I will need to be able to prepare to come in and do 2 episodes each time I record. So that's kind of the purpose of taking the time off, is not only to figure out how that's going to work, but also to get ahead of the game. When I come back, I want to have 4 or 5 episodes already under my belt. So today I'm not recording a full podcast, at least not this episode is not going to be fully recorded here in the studio, because I want to highlight my other podcast, and that's called My Other Podcast. See, while I am away, while I am not going to be publishing any episodes of Steeven Orr while I'm on hiatus, I'm still going to be podcasting twice a week over on my Patreon. And that's something that you can get for as little as $1 a month. That's 2 episodes every week for $1 a month. That's less than that's less than 25 cents an episode, honestly. And I don't want to sit here and try to sell it for too awful gosh darn long. I think the content will sell itself, frankly. And I have done a number of these highlights of my other podcast, but usually when I've done it, I've focused on the comic book side of things, because I do 2 episodes a week. One of them, the Friday episode, is typically about a comic book, whereas my Tuesday episode is typically about whatever is on my mind at the time. And it can range from many topics. And so what I've put together is a clip show of just stuff from the first 30 episodes. That's right, because I podcast twice a week, I'm up to about 65 episodes at this point. And so I put together clips from the first 30 or so episodes, and not all 30, but just those 30 episodes that were not dealing with comics. And what you're going to hear stuff like some behind the scenes stuff. There was there was a time period where I was having difficulty with the app that I use to record on my phone, because up until this point, I was recording all my podcasts on my phone. And so I was having a bit of a problem coming up with, I'll explain it. You'll get all the information. So you're going to get stuff like that where I'm trying out different microphones, and I'm asking the folks to microphones as in the app. Man, I'm really setting up these clips quite a bit. I'll tell you what, why don't we just play the clips, and then I'll come back at the end, and then that will be the end of the show. How's that? Sound good? Let's do it. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. It's really difficult to root for a group of Satanists. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. It's Steeven, and this is my other podcast. How's everybody doing? How's everybody feeling? What's life all about? That's a question, isn't it? What's life all about? Well, if you're lucky, it's about just being happy and making everybody else around you happy, right? Just being content. Helping those around you be happy and content too. Welcome to the Philosophy Podcast. So my other podcast has been a whirlwind of activity lately. And by that, I mean 2 episodes ago, I said, so here in the first episode of January, I'm going to be talking about a Sabrina comic book. And then the very next episode, I go, well, here's the thing. I know I said I was going to talk about Sabrina on the first episode of January, but you know what? I didn't do that because I got a book called Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, and I read that and I really enjoyed it. So that was going to be my first episode of January. And my second episode of January, well, that's going to be about Sabrina. The chilling adventures of Sabrina. Well, I'm here to tell you that stuff has changed yet again. So you've already probably listened to the first episode of January, episode 19, Kitty Pryde and Wolverine. Was that not awesome? Wasn't that not a great episode? It was, because the book was awesome. But for the second episode of January, I am not going to be talking about the chilling adventures of Sabrina because, well, let's just say I don't talk about books that I didn't enjoy. I just don't do that. If I didn't enjoy a book, I'm not going to talk about it on the show. We'll just say that. Why didn't I enjoy it? Because everybody, all the good guys and the bad guys worshiped Satan. And it's hard to get behind a group who worships Satan. It was a really weird book. If this sounds kind of funny, I'm holding the phone away from my face much further than I normally do. I had recorded an entire episode 4 already, and I was listening back to it, and all I could do was cringe every time I heard my breath pop into the mic. And it made me want to punch a shark in the nose with a fist made of green beans. I have no idea what that meant at all. But this is going to be a really short, tiny little freaking episode because I'm really angry. I'm really angry about all the big poppy sounds that come from my stupid breath and the way whenever I breathe out of my freaking mouth and my nose, it makes a big huffy sound all over the microphone. And I'm trying to figure this out here, and I know that maybe in the end y'all probably don't care. The occasional poppy pee. But you know what? It drives me up the freaking wall when I'm listening to it. And I tend to, anytime between when I'm talking, if I have a little puffy puff from my breath when I exhale into the microphone, I go in and take all those out. And I shouldn't have to do that. Only a crazy person would spend the time to do that. And I am a crazy person. But it just drives me nuts. And I don't know what this is going to sound like when I'm all done, but it's going to sound the way it's going to sound. And there's just not a lot that I can freaking do about it. So this is your episode 4. This is all it is. Just me being angry at myself, at technology, and watching somebody across the street at the convenience store smoking a cigarette. So I'm asking y'all, what do you think? Is 2 episodes too much? Is it not enough? Should I be doing 1 episode every single freaking day of the week? Yeah, I can't do that. So don't ask me to do that because that's not going to happen. But yeah, that's what's been going through my head lately. Am I doing the right thing? And then, of course, I start worrying about the Steeven Orr podcast, because here's something that I would love to freaking do. And had I really had time to plan it out and put a lot of thought into it, this is the route I would have gone. And that's to go, hey, hi there. It's Steven. Yeah, I'm interrupting the podcast for a moment here because, well, I was about to talk about something, an idea I have for the podcast going forward that I'm really not quite ready to talk about just yet. So I thought I would just edit that segment out of the podcast altogether. And doing such an edit would frankly make this little area be quite jarring. And so I thought I'd just jump in and explain that that's what I was doing. Sorry, I don't like to do these little edits, but I didn't really have a choice in this matter. But you can rest easy knowing that this is the only edit of such, the only interruption you're going to get in this episode. So I will just leave you to it and get you back into the episode. Again, I'm sorry. See, this is where I get confused because how do the Man of Steel episodes fit in that I'm going to be doing? Should they just be part of the regular shows, just every couple of weeks? I'm also going to talk about a Man of Steel book. But as much time as I spent, even though I thought it sounded pretty good on the Man of Steel on that last episode, was it too much for one book? And those really should be like one episode? I don't know. I just don't know what to do at this point. But if I had my druthers, I would do like a, hello, it's me again. Yeah. I know I said in the last interruption that would be the only interruption you would have in this episode, but I'm afraid I began to start talking about that idea again that I'm not ready to start talking about. So, so I'm interrupting again, but really this will be the last time. Sorry. Because here's the thing, both of my girls, they have talked about how they want to do a podcast. And the cute thing is they want to call it just another fangirl. I think that should be just a pair of fangirls because there are two of them, but they thought that they would call it just another fangirl because of just another fanboy, my old podcast. So, rather than pay for another, I don't know, because here's the thing. I don't know how to do a network, right? And I know that most podcast networks, they have the main feed, which has every episode on it, but each episode has their own feed, and that's expensive. So I don't know. If I did something like the Steeven Orr podcast network and I had this other episode, this other show on it that was okay, really, this will be the last time, I promise. But for some reason I keep wanting to bring it up and I'm just not ready to talk about it yet. So, sorry. Third interruption, final one, no more, I promise. Back to your show. So that's the episode. I might call this what was the, see, I can't think right now. The, not neurological. It's my crazy episode. It's my, why can't I think of that word? I said it earlier in the episode. My, you know what? It's been a long freaking night. It's now 9:22. I need to get back inside, but I still have to eat my Bumblebee snack pack thing. So this is my episode. Thank you all. Help me. Should I do 2 episodes? Maybe okay, really, I'm not trying to annoy anybody here. For some reason, I just keep bringing it up. And if anybody is annoyed, it's me at myself for forcing these interruptions into this podcast. I swear this is going to be the last one. There are no more. I couldn't possibly bring it up again in this episode. So this will be the last one. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Have a great life. Again, I apologize. This is a special bonus episode, a special Wednesday bonus episode. I said Wednesday. That's right. So you're getting 3 episodes this week. I'm going to just tell you that right now. You got Monday's episode, which was episode number 18. You're getting this bonus episode, which is number 19. And then you're going to get Friday's episode, which is episode number 20. Friday's episode I've already recorded, and that's going to come into play here in just a second. So the reason why I'm doing this special episode here today is I need help making a choice. And because I need help making this choice, I am actually making this episode available to the public. So it's still going to be on Patreon, but it's available to the public for anybody who wants to listen to it. And it's going to be a short episode, so people will want to listen to it, I guess. I don't know. But I've been having problems with my voice recorder app on the phone. That's the app I'm using right at this moment to record my voice. But lately, it's just been shutting down in the middle of recordings. And sometimes it shuts down and saves automatically what I've recorded. Sometimes it just shuts down. I could be talking for 20 minutes, gone. And it's like 20 minutes of just like all-star, first-class, top-notch stuff that I just lose. And I can't get it back. And I try to recreate it, and it doesn't happen. So, if you listen to an episode that you think, that's not very good, it's probably because I did a great episode that got lost. Or maybe it's just not a good episode. I don't know. So anyway, I downloaded a new app called Mic Swap. And it's a free app. It does have in-app purchases. But it comes with 3 in-house microphones that you can choose from. And you choose one of those microphones and you record. And you can add new microphones if you want to purchase them. It comes with a quote-unquote studio room that you're recording in, virtual reality-wise, I guess. And you can purchase more, blah, blah, blah. I'm not purchasing more stuff because, I'm a low-rent fanboy and ain't got the money for all that kind of stuff. But I am going to test out 2 of the 3 mics. And I know that the second one on there I don't like. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to test out 2 of the 3 mics. And I'm going to do that here. So right now what you have is the podcast being recorded through the voice recorder app, which is the sound you're hearing now. But I'm going to switch over to the new mic. So this is going to be the first mic of the new app. And I'm going to switch over to that mic now. So this is the first of the 2 mics that I am going to be testing. The app, the Mic Swap app actually comes with 3 different mics, but one of them I've already decided I don't like at all. I just don't like the sound of it. These other 2, I do like the sound of both of them. I just can't decide which one I like more. So your job at this point is to listen to what I'm saying here, and then in a minute, I'll swap over to the other mic. You listen to what I'm saying there, and then tell me which one you like best. So this is what I sound like with this mic. And so now I'm going to switch over to the other mic, and I'm going to do that now. So now I'm on the second of the 2 mics, and this is what my voice sounds like on that mic. So yeah, like I said, your job here is to listen to both and tell me which one you like the best. I don't know which one I like the best because I haven't heard them both yet at this point, back to back like this. As soon as I put this little episode together, this short, tiny little episode, then I too will listen to both of these mics back to back and decide which one I like. But I'm really interested to hear what you like as well. So please leave your thoughts in the show notes, in the show notes. Please leave your thoughts as a comment to this post over on Patreon. So now I'm going to switch back to the voice recorder app. I'm going to do that now. So I'm back on the voice recorder app, and I'll be honest with you. I like the sound of the voice recorder app. I do like the way it sounds. But I've been having these problems with it just shutting down on me as I'm recording, and that's starting to fray on my nerves a bit. It's 8:53 p.m. on Monday, November the 26th. It's cold outside, and it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Actually, it's all snowy out there, but it's no longer falling from the sky. And it's that dirty snow, after the cars have passed over it many times and thrown up all their exhaust, and it's got that gray, dirty, trashy-looking snow that looks like crap. That's what I'm looking at. So I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, but right now it's cold and gray. Cold and gray and never ends. So I just finished a book. It's The Escape Artist by Brad Meltzer. And I just wanted to tell you I really enjoyed it. If you're not sure who Brad Meltzer is, he's the dude that wrote That was a great book. He's the guy that wrote Identity Crisis for DC. And I thought that's all right, because obviously they're going to talk about Kiss. You can't talk about music from the 70s and not talk about Kiss. You're going to talk about disco. You might talk about the birth of hip hop, but maybe not, because that was there at the tail end of the 70s. You're going to talk about, there's a lot to talk about in the 70s. But you're going to talk about Kiss. You can't talk about music from the 70s and not talk about Kiss, because Kiss was huge in the 70s. They were everywhere. You couldn't turn your face and not see something about Kiss. I mean, Kiss was huge. And yet the episode ends and I realized they didn't talk about Kiss at all. They did have a little segment about rock and roll and how it was the era of the big, this is when the big stage shows started with the pyrotechnics, and because they were comparing it to folks who would just, there were two types of rock and roll shows you could go see: the big show, or just people that kept it real. They were just up there with their guitar and they just played. They weren't all about the theatrics. But then when they talked about the rock and roll bands that were all about theatrics, and they didn't mention Kiss. How could you not mention Kiss? How can you not mention Kiss when you're talking about 70s music? It just angered me. And if I was a different person and it was a different time, I would have written somebody a letter. I would have gotten my paper out, would have gotten my pen, and I would have written a letter. And I would have put it in the mail and said, "Dear sir, how dare you? How dare you?" I don't care if you don't take Kiss seriously, You don't have to take Kiss seriously. But they influenced a number of bands, a great big jackin' bunch of them. And again, they were freaking huge in the 70s. They sold all kinds of records. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it, and I don't care if anybody wants to debate with me about it. I don't care. But it would be like doing a documentary episode on music from the 80s and not mentioning Michael Jackson. It would be like doing a documentary series episode about music from the 60s and not mentioning the Beatles. It would be like doing a documentary music series episode about 90s music and not mentioning Nirvana. To talk about music from the 70s and not mention Kiss is a crime. It's a crime. It's a crying shame and a crime. And it really, really makes me upset. And that's about all I wanted to talk about, because I do consider Kiss one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time. I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care if anybody tells me I'm wrong. That's my opinion. I made a big deal about country music, but you know what? If you like country music, more power to you, man. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean there's nothing valid about country music. I mean, obviously, country music is very popular. There is a lot of people that like country music. I don't get it, but that doesn't mean that someone who likes country music is wrong, because they're not. I'm not wrong for liking Kiss. That documentary was wrong for not including Kiss. And maybe for some weird reason, I'm sure somebody could fire back and say, well, maybe Kiss didn't want to be included. Bull. If Kiss is anything, they would have wanted to, bull crap. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so I've been thinking about this lately, and I know that eventually I'm a little over half loud truck driving down the road, being loud. We have a lot of loud vehicles in this town. Now I hear a dog barking. Somebody left their dog in the car. Not cool. Can you hear the dog barking? Can you hear the dog barking as the car drives by? Yeah, no, he's not left in the car. I can't tell. I don't know where that dog's barking from. So anyway, I had this idea as another yawn rolls in. So over at the main podcast, I've only got 2 gigabytes worth of storage space for the episodes, and I know that eventually I'll have to start taking old episodes down in order to put new episodes up, and I've been thinking about where I'm going to put those old episodes, and part of me thought, well, I'll have them over on YouTube, but it's been like, I think the last episode I have up on YouTube is episode 8. It's just such a pain in the butt to put them up on YouTube that I just have it. So I thought, excuse me. I thought instead, as I take them off of the podcast site, I just throw them over on Patreon. And that way, for you folks, and I won't make them, exclusive to patrons, but if you are a patron, you have that special RSS feed that you can use to access my other podcasts through places like Apple Podcasts and Podcast Addict, places like that. So you would still have access to the older episodes through that feed. That's slightly genius, isn't it? What's going on with the Terminator franchise, by the way? I mean, here is a franchise that should be pretty awesome, but it's like nobody can quite crack it. So the first movie, of course, super awesome. The second movie, also super awesome. I really have a hard time getting beyond the kid that played John Connor, but that's just me. Otherwise, super awesome movie. Terminator 3, not so much. Not so much at all. Terminator Salvation was all right. Terminator, Genesis? I really enjoyed Terminator Genesis, but nobody else seemed to like it. Why can't they get that movie right? I don't know. What is it about that movie? Is it simply because, ultimately, the first movie, the premise was a fairly simple one. In the future, machines have taken over, and there's a particular fella, John Connor, that wins the war, or at least is winning the war. And in order to stop him, they send a Terminator back in time to kill his mother, before she is impregnated with him. And so John Connor sends a dude back in time to stop this Terminator and to help his mother. And then, whoa, this guy ends up being his daddy. That's a twist. That's pretty weird. So the machines are like, oh, crap. Not only did it not work, but we're the reason why John Connor's even born. Because really, when you think about it, if the Terminators had never, how would that have worked? If the machines had just thought to themselves, beep, boop, 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 beep, let's not send anyone back to kill John Connor, would John Connor then just snap out of existence? That's a pretty interesting idea, don't you think? I might tweet about that. I just might. But I might not. Depends. So is that really what it comes down? Is that how they could have won? Just by not sending? Because by sending a Terminator back, John Connor had to send somebody back, which ended up being his father. Time travel is a tricky business. It's a tricky thing. But no, the machines ended up going, oh, well, crap, that didn't work. And frankly, we realize now that we shouldn't have even done it in the first place. We just put in place a self-fulfilling prophecy. But hey, how about we wait? How about we send another Terminator back? We've got a better Terminator now. This dude is like grease lightning. He is liquid metal and can make his hands into blades. That's pretty cool. So how about we send him back? But how about instead of sending him back to kill John Connor's mom, we send him back to kill John Connor when John Connor's a kid? And one of the other machines goes, maybe we should instead just send it back to kill John Connor's mom. Maybe we should send it back to help the other Terminator that we sent back. Cause, I bet that would work. And that was like one lone machine in the back. He's like, hello. Yes, I've got an idea. Couldn't we just go and kill John Connor's mother when she was a baby? And then another one goes, ooh, that's a good idea, mate. How about instead we send a Terminator back to like when Sarah Connor's grandparents were born and just slaughter that whole village? How about we do that? Okay, here's one for you. This is one that in my head makes total sense, but I've never been able to explain it to anybody to where they go, oh yeah, you're right, Steven. You are right. You have poked a hole in this movie. And I'm talking about Back to the Future 3. Okay, so let's think about this. This is going to be hard to explain through audio. I usually have to draw charts, diagrams of some sort. Okay, so at the end of Back to the Future 2, Doc Brown in the time machine gets struck by lightning and goes back to 1850, right? And then he writes a letter, gives it to Western Union or whoever was around at the time, to give to Marty in 1955. In order to help Marty get back to his own time, the Doc takes the DeLorean and hides it in a mine where it sits for 100 years until 1955, when the Doc Brown of 1955 and Marty uncover it from the mine, okay? Everybody's with me so far. They get it working, and Marty decides, you know what? I'm going to go back and get Doc because we've now uncovered this article that shows that Doc Brown is killed back in 1855 or whenever it was. And so they send him back to 1855, and he is set upon by Indians, and he gets something happens. Anyway, he hurts. Can't talk. The fuel line gets ruptured. Okay, and all the fuel leaks out of the car. So here's the question that they don't answer. Because really, if you think about it, there are now 2 time machines in 1855. The time machine that Doc Brown hid in the mine, and the very same one that's 100 years older. Okay? So unless Doc drained all the gas out of it, which he may have, but they don't tell us that. There's no reason why they can't go, oh, well, let's just go back to the mine where you hid the time machine, and we'll just take the fuel and the fuel line out of that one. But they don't even address that at all. Am I right or am I wrong? I mean, I would be wrong had they brought it up and said, Marty said, well, what about the other time machine? And Doc said, oh, well, thinking consciously about it sitting there for 100 years, I drained all the fuel out of it, which would make sense, I suppose. I don't know. I'm not a doctor like Doc Brown, so I wouldn't think to drain. I would just park it and say, there you go. So yeah, am I right or am I wrong? Because you know what? I'm right. I want to hear you try to prove me wrong, because guess what? I'm right. Yeah, I haven't seen that many downloads this month. I'm okay with that. I mean, it's only month number 4 with the podcast. I don't really do a lot of, I'm not a marketer. I'm not out there pushing the podcast and making connections and swapping promos and stuff. Cause I'm just not good at that kind of stuff. I tweet about it. I'm not on Facebook, and I probably never will be. Google Plus is going down the drain, so I can't really do anything there. I don't do Instagram. I don't do Pinterest. Twitter is about it for me. That's about all this old man can handle is Twitter. So I think I'm doing okay as long as I don't drop below 52 downloads a month. 52. Wow. For you CGS listeners, 52. Maybe that means something. So that's where we're at with the podcast right now. That's how we're doing. My dad tells me, because I have given them both of my books, Holidays Gold and The Adventures of Norman, Oklahoma, Volume 1. I gave them copies of both books. And when I gave them Norman, Oklahoma not that long ago, my dad, who is a frequent visitor to the local library, and it's a small town library, it's a town where I grew up, they still live there. He tells me that he's gonna take those books in there and see if they'll, put them on the shelf. And so he tells me at Christmas that or the other day when we were there for Christmas, that he had gone down to the library and he talked to them and they agreed and they're going to put my books up on the shelf, which is kind of neat. It's my local library, my hometown library. Every every now and then I would, they had a Xerox machine in there that you could use for a quarter. And I would ride down there on my bike with some comic books in my backpack. And I would go down there and plunk in some quarters and do black and white, grayscale, basically copies of comic book covers. And then I would take them home and try to color them with colored pencils and crayons and stuff. Didn't quite work out. But that was, I thought that was one of the coolest things when I was a kid, that I could go and make copies of these comic book covers. Right? And, but yeah, go see it if you haven't already. Watership Down. Excellent, excellent, excellent movie. Excellent series. 4 1-hour episodes. And, man, who was the guy that played Woundwort? Was that his name? Man, I can't even remember. I'm just so tired. I got to be going back in here pretty quick. All right. So, that's my episode. I bored you for a little bit. I annoyed you for a little bit. Maybe I gave you just a tiny bit of entertainment. Maybe you laughed. Maybe you smiled. Maybe you're not even listening to this part anymore because you've already turned it off because you said, this guy sucks. I'm paying $1, $2 a month for this crap. Sorry. What do you want me to say? Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. All that other stuff. Of course, by the time you hear this, it'll be the 26th. So all that stuff's gone. I don't know what, I celebrate Christmas. I don't celebrate any of the others. So I don't know when those, I know that Hanukkah is 12 nights, 12 crazy nights, as Adam Sandler puts it. I don't know anything about any of the other religions. I probably should learn about those holidays, because I consider myself somewhat of a man of the world. Not really. I don't consider myself a man of the world. Not at all. But I do. I should learn. I should learn other stuff. Don't you think? It's probably a good thing to learn other stuff. I'm rambling at this point. I mean, I'm sure you all know that. Anybody that has not just switched it off at this point and have gone on to do other things like eat some cereal or, I don't know, draw a picture of a bunny. Bye.
Take a look around, just like everybody else. Take a look around, you're no different than anybody else. Take a look around.
Okay. That was some of my other podcasts. You're actually going to get more next week in the final episode before I go on hiatus. But again, I just wanted to kind of highlight what's going on over there because I really have a lot of fun podcasting over there at, when I do the episodes for my other podcasts, because they're typically short episodes. They're anywhere between 15 to 25 minutes long. It's a very rare occasion that they're above 20 minutes. And it's usually me in my car during break at the second job. And literally for a lot of those, it's whatever is on my mind at the time. And it could be just simply something that just hits me as I'm literally walking from the front door of my second job out to my car. And sometimes I don't even know what I'm going to talk about when I hit record, and I just start talking, and I think that's part of the fun. So if you want to be a part of that, if you want to join in on the conversation, I feel like that's a thing that somebody says it. Join in on the conversation. I think that's a Twitter thing, isn't it? Anyway, if you want to join in, if you want to support me and you want to listen to these bonus episodes as they were, just go on over to patreon.com/Steeven Orr and sign up. It's $1 a month. I have other tiers. I have higher tiers. You don't have to only choose the $1, but that minimum, that $1 a month minimum is going to get you I'm trying to talk and it's not coming out good. It's going to get you the My Other podcast, which again, as I said, comes out twice a week. And really, with the exception of times where I highlight certain stuff here on the Steeven Orr Show podcast thing, wow. it is exclusive to my patrons, and it's really cool. It's kind of a cool thing. If you've never used Patreon before, when you sign up, you get an RSS feed that is specific just to you. It's your own personalized RSS feed. And then you can take that over to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, or Google Podcasts, or Podcast Addict, anywhere that will allow you to find podcasts based off of the RSS feed. You plug that freaking RSS feed in, and then anytime I upload an episode, bam, you've got it right there on your podcatcher. And I also use it. I'm going to be using it quite a bit during this hiatus to preview for the patrons what I'm going to be doing with Steeven Orr Else going forward, because the typical stuff you're hearing now in Steeven Orr Else in these first 40 or so episodes, that's not necessarily what you're going to get when I come back. I'm trying some new things, and I'm going to be highlighting some of that stuff. I'll be previewing some of that stuff while I am, on hiatus. I'll be throwing some of that up on the Patreon. So not only are you going to get, so basically what I'm saying here is this, okay? Here's what I've been doing recently. Whenever I have recorded the last couple weeks, I have recorded an episode of the Steeven Orr Else podcast. And this will be an example. If you're just a regular listener of the Steeven Orr Else podcast, you get this episode on Monday. I have it actually recorded and edited by Friday, the Friday before. And I've just been putting them up on the Patreon on Fridays. So if you're $1 a month supporter on Patreon, you're not only getting the My Other Podcast twice a week, any other podcast that I do, you're usually getting that a day or two early. And you're also going to be getting extra highlighted bonus preview stuff from the new Steeven Orr Else podcast while I am on hiatus. All right, so leave your questions and comments at stevenorelse@gmail.com. You can also go to stevenorelse.com and leave a comment on the show. The theme song for this episode was Worship by Trinity X. You can find that and more information about the band at atomiczombierecords.bandcamp.com. I don't have my show notes in front of me. I forgot to print them off, and they're not on my flash drive. I can pull up. I started to do Google Docs for my show notes, and I didn't put any together for this because I knew I was just coming in and doing an intro and an outro, and I thought I could just do it all off the top of my head. So you can see how I have failed there. Anyway, my name is Steeven, and this has been my podcast. Be nice to each other.
Bye-bye, Daddy.
Bye-bye, Daddy.
Good job.